I had to go to therapy. You're broken spiritually, you're broken mentally, you're broken physically. You feel like you got hit by a bus. You can't get up. There's this weight on you. I had to do a lot of self-forgiveness because I really felt like it was all my fault. Of course, you're going to think it's your fault because you were an addict most of your life. But you got to understand, that your son was an adult, and the thing that God gives all of us is free will. And you might say, well, why didn't God intervene or make it not enough to kill him, and all those woulda, coulda, shoulda? You have to understand that your son chose to do what he did. Unfortunately, there's no coming back to that.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Journey to Solutions podcast, where we interview people from all walks of life who've overcome the impossible. We shine light on one simple truth: no matter your past, no matter your pain, with the power of God, anything is possible. Today we have a very special guest. She is somebody who's been able to break the drug that was ruining her life, which was crystal meth, and as we know, that's a heavy one. She's also been on the other side of addiction by seeing her kids go through it. And she had a sad experience. One of her kids, ended up being one of those people where fentanyl's laced in something else and passed away. So she has a lot of wisdom on how to navigate that. She also grew up with an alcoholic father, so she knows what it's like to be raised in that type of environment. And it's amazing because not only has she been able to overcome so many obstacles in her life, but she's also an entrepreneur. She's a business owner. She's a woman of God. And one of her missions is to be able to be there for other women that have lost their kids to fentanyl, that lost their kids to addiction, that have lost their kids to what happens in that world, because addicts are lucky because you have AA everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. NA, it's everywhere. Recover Out Loud. But those on the other side of it tend to not have too much support. It is out there, but I feel like there's more that can be put out there. And so she wants to create that to give people hope, to give people purpose, and to help people heal. So I want to introduce Lila Don.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Fausto. It's a pleasure to be here. An honor to be by your side.
No, of course. Yeah, I feel like, you have so much wisdom to offer people because you have so many layers of going through, your own battle with crystal meth, seeing your kids go through addiction, drug use, growing up in a home where you said your father was an alcoholic. Kind of run us through, what was your childhood like?
So it's funny because my mother was straight edge. No drinking, no smoking. And my dad was a party animal, right? Every Friday, loved to drink, but was a pot smoker, since he was 14.
Mm-hmm. Both parents Mexican?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My mother from Zacatecas and my dad from Jalisco. Mm-hmm. And so my dad was hard worker, didn't miss a day. I don't remember going on vacation and any of that because, he just didn't make, that kind of money. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom the whole time that they were together. When I was 8 years old, my dad also, because my mom was so straight edge and he was such a party animal, he couldn't really come home, or he wouldn't come home on Fridays, because, my mom was tough, right? So he'd go with his friends and come home, whatever, late on Fridays or the next day or whatever. And it was always a fight. And my mom was brutal, she'd be like, where, that kind of way. And then sometimes it got violent, Never saw my dad beat up my mom really bad, but, just slap her around because she would just whatever, bag on him. And eventually...
Did you have siblings?
Yes. So I have 3 sisters. Okay. I am the third of 4. Okay. I have 2 older and 1 younger. And so when I was 8, my mom kicked him out. We actually left, me and my little sister and my mother. Mm-hmm. And because my older sisters were, kind of... They were 12 and 11. So I don't know why, but my mom left them behind and just took me and my little sister. So 2
with your mom, 2 with your dad.
2 stayed. Well, but then my sisters came to look for us right away because they weren't going to stay, just with my dad. So finally my dad left the house and then we went back home. And then things got really tough because, again, my mom was a stay-at-home mother, now forced to work.
Where did you guys go when you left?
To my mom's sister's house.
Okay,
we walked there. House. It was, I don't know, maybe a 30-minute walk. And my dad was there that night looking for us, asking the sister where we were. But my mom, that was it. Mm-hmm. She wasn't going to go back. And I don't know if she thought it, all the way through, because it was tough being raised by, her. But, she did raise us almost like boys, because it was like, you guys are going to work, you're going to go to school, you're going to be independent, because if you do get together with somebody that treats you bad, or, doesn't fulfill the role of a good father and a good husband, you guys can pick up and leave without, wondering where the next meal is going to come from, or how you're going to put a roof over your head.
And how did you process that, if you can remember being that young and your mom's kind of giving you this information? Like, sometimes kids might view like, my mom was the bad one, not my dad. Some kids can think that because you're young, you don't know what you're seeing, or one parent says one thing versus the other. Do you kind of remember how you process that whole situation of your mom leaving, you're staying with mom's kind of raising you with these morals now, what to do?
Yes, and it's so funny because my oldest sister, Rose, she was very close with my dad. So you figure my older sisters are 1 year apart. So my oldest sister, Rose, was like that with my dad. And then my older sister, Margie, was like that with my mother. And then I come 3 years later, and then my little sister comes 6 years later. So there's a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
So either way, we ended up, all with my mother. But I remember being so young and always wanting to help my mom, because we were poor, I mean, we could barely pay the rent and all, that sort of stuff. And, how we made it, I don't know. My mother to this day is the wisest woman I've ever met, who made ends meet somehow, but did put us all to work. Back in the day, there was something called the CETA program. So if you were 14 years old and had a 3.0 GPA, you could work. You would get the work permit. So all of us at 14, we were all put to work, right? And not to buy tennis shoes or Levi's, nothing like that. No, to help pay the rent, and make ends meet. Because one thing about my wonderful mother is she never brought men around, because we were all little girls. So she never like hooked up because she needed help ever. Which, I think like, wow, what a sacrifice, to kick my dad out and really, really need some help or some other type of support, yet wouldn't do it for the protection, of us girls.
Yeah.
So again, put us to work right away. So my sister Rose was so angry with my mother for kicking my dad out, that everything that my mom didn't want us to do, hang around with the cholos at the park, smoke cigarettes, do what everybody else is doing, my sister rebelled and started doing all of that. So then your oldest sister is starting to bring those habits home. We got that whole dysfunctional thing start to happen now. And me at this point, because I think I started smoking weed, and my sisters used to smoke PCP, and and they used to put the spray paint on
huffing,
the socks, and
inhale
sniff
it.
the paint. That really would get them like, oh fuck, and I would be scared, because they would totally turn into like, they didn't know what it was. But so we had that struggle. She had it with my two oldest sisters, and me being younger, eventually, because you store PCP in the freezer, and I'd be like, anyway, you get a little taste of that. That was interesting, Was
that the first thing you ever did, was PCP?
Yeah, no, marijuana
weed first and then
yes,
PCP.
and then PCP. Wow. And then we were, back in the day, people were smoking raw cocaine. Oh. So in my 20s, I got a hold of somewhere where I could buy the raw cocaine already cooked, right? Because at first you're trying to cook it and ruining everything, and you're broke as it is, and man, you're ruining the stuff. Anyway, once we found that, that took me on raw cocaine, which became what spiraled me in my 20s. And I always worked, because my mother, I'm telling you.
Yeah, she basically programmed you guys to be like hustlers.
High functioning, from school to work to sports, just always busy. So we were programmed to get up early in the morning and to work and do what we needed to do and come home at night.
Did you graduate high school normally and then go to college, or? So
in the 11th grade, right, like I said, I was already smoking weed and even some PCP. And I was that student, that high, almost 4.0 student.
And
that's
partying. One of those.
Selling acid at school and
been doing
smoking
that
weed
too,
in the morning, and an all-girls school. I'm here at Sacred Heart of Jesus, all-girls school in Lincoln Heights. So finally, just stupid, me and four other girls were smoking weed by the Virgin Mary statue right there on the side of the cafeteria. Anyway, we all got busted. We all got kicked out. I was an 11th grader on my way to college. I mean, the nun that was preparing me for college even pleaded for me with the principal, like, at least keep Lila, she's on her way for, we could change trajectory. That principal was like, that little girl is the leader of the pack. She's the first one to go, right? Which was heartbreaking for my mother. I didn't even call my mother. I called my father. So he comes and they're telling him the story. And anyway, so I end up at Garfield High School in the 12th grade. No friends, right? Public school. So really start still working. And, again, I was smoking rock cocaine for 5 years. When you're poor, you don't go to rehab. There's no money to send you to rehab. So you either go to jail, and get your whatever, 90, I ended up doing 90 days.
Oh, you've been locked up too?
Yeah. Well, I got in trouble. I forget what it was for. Just, not even selling drugs, taking my friends to buy drugs. So then they thought I'm selling the drugs.
Right.
And so they busted me a few times and finally they kept me and they sent me up to a girls' camp in Miraloma for 90 days. Well, those 90 days got me sober enough. And
how old are you at that point?
So you figure I'm 21,
At this
22.
point, you do the 90 days?
Yes. So that I come out, and I already know my husband at the time. So when I get out, his brother is studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Because, in jail, they always say, the Lord can help you guys. You're in trouble because, right? So I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm going to have to go out to the same environment, to my same house. I'm going to need you to help me out here, right? So I'm already with boyfriend and girlfriend with my husband. So we move out of East LA. Oh wait, this happens later after I have my son. But anyway, we start studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So that helps me quit the rock cocaine, right? I'm still smoking a little bit of weed and stuff like that. But so I'm sober for about 5 years in my 20s.
Oh, wow. So you had 5 years off of it.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
5 years on it, and then let me see. Oh, I see. If I had my years, no, I was sober for like 15 years, and then in my 40s, when my mother-in-law died, that's when I picked up the meth through a cousin who was still using. But in the meantime, I have 3 beautiful children. My son Christopher, he would have been 37 this year. I've got my daughter who's 33, and then I have my youngest son Nick, who's 28.
So in your 20s, you do this 90-day program. You become a Jehovah's Witness, practicing that. Which now you're stopping to smoke. You stop smoking crack cocaine, and in this time you're with your husband. You're having 3 kids. When you have your 3 kids, are you off the crack cocaine?
Oh yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And then how long is it until you pick up crystal meth from that point?
I'm gonna say it's 15 years.
Okay, so in 15 years, your husband, 3 kids, and what does your life look like in those 15 years before you picked up meth? Now.
So the Jehovah's Witness lifestyle. It's the door to door and that sort of stuff. And if I'm gonna do something, I'm always all in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do all in. So the whole thing, figure all those years, raise my kids in the religion. No Christmas, same thing. No Christmas, even though I'd still sneak it in because so much of the family still had those celebrations. So I wasn't a very stringent Jehovah's Witness, but that's where I felt safe. I knew that, the Lord was at least helping me because, Jehovah's Witness religion is very, very, very disciplined, very, very just calculating. And so I'm going to say it's what I needed at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Then I started to grow as a Christian and felt like I had a grip of my addiction. Then the Jehovah's religion was not working for me because it was so judgmental to me. And I just felt like, what? I'm not growing spiritually here. I don't like that, what we're doing to like the kids with not having all that fun, loving stuff with them.
Yeah.
And then told my husband one day, you know what, I'm not going to go to the Kingdom Hall anymore. And it was kind of like, because we had been taking the children, and his fear was like, oh, you're going to start using, or we're going to start having all these problems. And I was like, I'm not leaving God. I'm leaving this religion that I don't want to go there. I just don't want to be there anymore. So let me see. So I'm going to say maybe 5 years after that, my mother-in-law passed away. That's the only thing that I can think of that would trigger me or why I would think about doing that. So I went to a wedding with a cousin of mine who was using at the time. And I couldn't even give you the reason why it happened, but it happened. And at first it was like she snorted, and then I didn't really like that. And then I caught her one day in the bathroom and she was smoking it. So you know what I mean? I was already trying it every now and then. So, and because I'm an addict, just that's the way I am. For something that spirals me or that takes control of me, it was just a matter of time where I was in full-blown addiction, smoking meth. So now I have the business, now I have my kids, now I have, all these things going on, but I'm such a high-functioning worker, addict person. God, I smoked for 10 years and my husband didn't know the first 5.
So for the first 5 years, which is, and let's talk about that because, I've smoked meth before too. And all the time I smoke meth, I ain't gonna let no human being see me. Like, you'll know. But for you, for 5 years of it, how do you think it was, you were able to hide it from the person that you're with the most, in a sense?
So I had the safety supply business, and then I opened up this little boutique downstairs. So I was actually running two businesses at the same time. So I think for him would be like, man, she's running the two businesses.
That's why
so
she's up all day gone or whatever she's doing. Yeah.
Yes. And then you figure at first, when you smoke meth, you're like, it really hits you. But if you're smoking daily, your body, it acclimates to everything. Before you know it, it's just to get up in the morning, and it's just to, if you start feeling that, you smoke again, and that's just the way it was. And by this time, now I have money, now I have the connection. So now I'm making sure that I have a, good amount and never feel the lows. And
how did you navigate, like, because like for me, when I can never sleep. Did you ever have days where you didn't sleep for days? Yeah. You start seeing shadow, you start seeing shadow people, you're hearing things.
In the beginning as a rookie meth smoker, yeah. But when I was a daily user, now my body knew when to shut it down. Or at night, I wouldn't smoke like, right before bed or anything. I just knew when to shut it off so that I could get sleep. And for 5 years, my husband didn't know. My husband just figured, maybe, it's the two businesses. And then for a minute when he actually told me after, when my sister told on me, because somehow it got out.
Yeah.
And my sister told on me, and I remember I was just so mad at my sister. And he told me that he was relieved because for a moment there he thought there might be another person. Another man or whatever. Right. And it was like, no, it was this little glass thing right here.
This is what I'm doing, actually.
This is the boyfriend.
This is the man.
this glass pipe right here, a little bubble at the end.
Yeah.
So, and then, once he found out, of course, I would try to get sober. And even then, I didn't think rehab. I was like, you know what? I need to find another church kind of thing to help me through this. And there went another 5 years where I'd quit, relapse, right?
What was, let me ask you this too. Like, do you feel like at that point, do you think your kids knew at all? Maybe like something's wrong with mom, or mom acts a little weird. Like, do you ever talk with them?
No, because I was like, I'm going to call it kind of the head of the household. I came and went as I went. And this is the horrible thing is, at that point, I was like, y'all have nothing to worry about. You guys have everything you need. If I'm not here, I'm, this or that. And then, the little boutique that I had, so I ended up getting a really good connection of like counterfeit Louis Vuitton bags. So once I started, doing that, just things got even crazier because, you market, all the girls want that, right? And
because how much could you sell a counterfeit one for around?
Well, you figure, it just depends. You can sell them for $500, $800, $1,200, depending on which one. And you still are paying, a fraction of that.
Yeah.
But the quality that this guy had was like, nobody had the quality like I had, And then you get one teacher to wear them, and she brings on the teachers. You already know how it is, yeah. So then that got crazy. And then this one girl that was doing the hustle with me, so she starts dating, fooling around this trafficker guy, right? And once I found out, because he came to the shop, and you couldn't tell. You go to my shop right now, you couldn't tell that I had the boutique in there. You had to know. It was a little bit of an undercover thing. Long story short, she's dating this trafficker. The cops tail him. She's coming to my spot. They're tailing me, thinking I'm moving drugs, but I'm not. I'm just, I just got the undercover boutique going on. Anyway, she brings the heat. So then I end up in jail for that. So now I've got...
And how old are you at this point when you go to jail that time?
Shoot, I'm 50.
So 50 years old in jail.
Yes. So you figure I'm an addict from 40 to 50 years old. I'm 60 now, right? So so I go to jail, and I'm thinking I'm going to get out, right? I got in trouble twice. You pay, right? I'm out. The first time was you get 30 days. I was out in one day. The next time, I think they gave me 90 days. And here I thought 90 days, I'll do a week. So I go in, and I stay in there for 20 days. And I'm calling my husband. What do you mean? I'm not. Anyway, again, telling God to help me because I was out of control again. And like they say, you ask and God hears. He put me in jail, I think the second time as well, where I got sober for those 20 days. And sitting there as a 50-year-old woman with all the...
how was that?
Well, luckily they put me in the pregnancy ward. So the girls get to come outside out of their cells and walk, and there's a little bit more of a leniency there for things. So there I am, all the young girls that are there, and even the cops are like, "What are you doing here?" Because I have a certain way I speak because I'm a professional.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Why are you here?" Right? And I go, "Oh, just counterfeit stuff, all business. They're like, yeah, you don't seem. So again, and because I don't know how to sit still. And once I realized I had to stay, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to work in here. I'm gonna volunteer to, then they give you work, you clean up the reception as the girls are coming in or whatever. And like I said, when I do something, I do it right. I don't care if I'm cleaning the toilet or whatever, or, doing something, I just do it very well. So finally, one of the police says, you can get out on work release. You just got to fill out these papers. And you know me, I'm like, oh, really? Because you still have to do your time, even if they put you, they let you go on work release. But at least you get to work from home. Long story short, I got out of there. I came home. I did the rest of my 90 days working at the sheriff's station, doing landscaping or whatever. And, had a couple of relapses, but trying so hard just not to smoke. And then I wish I could say, oh, it was this day, this is when I quit. But I know it's been at least 10 years, So
what would you say was one of the most difficult parts of quitting crystal meth at that point? And what was it that really helped you when you're like, finally, I'm not doing it anymore?
I remember we went to New Orleans with some cousins of my husband's, and I was crazy. You know how you got to walk through the thing. So I take my drugs and I would put my pipe right here, and they check you and stuff. Oh, I think about it now. And I was still getting high, when we were traveling with the family. And I remember I went into the bathroom and I smoked in the bathroom, and I guess I poofed such a cloud that it made the alarm go off in the hotel. It was like late.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God, come out like, the back like, oh my God, why is that on? Whatever. Yeah. And, the cousin of my husband looks out the door and she's like, did you set that alarm off? I'm like, no, girl, Yeah. But I mean, I was like, this is pathetic. And that's the only thing in my memory that I could remember and saying that this is ridiculous. This is it. Again, more of a surrender, I think, to God. Like, please, God, please help me, And I never did like AA and all that. I just, found a church again, and I can only say, what I can't do physically myself, it's the God that helped me, really. I can only give him the credit.
Did you have to find things that kind of occupy your time? Because sometimes more the oral fixation of like smoking, packing, doing things. And the first you're kind of like, okay, well, what do I do now? I feel like I need to do something. Or some people say, I don't have as much energy now. I like it for the energy part. I feel more tired now. Like, what were some things practically that you had to do to kind of occupy that time in the beginning or do stuff?
The first year was hard.
Yeah.
10 years of daily, very hard. Your dopamine level goes to zero.
I can imagine. Yeah.
You have no enjoyment of anything. The depression.
Yeah.
The thoughts of smoking again. It was a dark year. It was hard. And I just kind of existed, I guess, went through the motions of work. But even at work, I wasn't at all at a high type performance because I could go and nobody would know. I don't know. It's wild to think, that, because when I would smoke rock, we'd have to be inside. We had different things. One would go in the closet. My other homegirl would like act weird. I thought my hair was burning, and I'd be right there with wet hair, but it'd have to be in the house, right? But with meth, it was a total different functioning kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I wish I journaled. I probably should, because I think if I would have wrote all that I went through, I'd be able to tell the story a little bit better. But all I know is sobriety. I give credit to God, because when He says he left His friend, the Holy Spirit, behind to help us. That's the only thing that I can think of. And then of course, you give back. My son Christopher, he moved out when he was in his early 20s. He was a musician. He picked up the guitar when he was 12, right? And he loved his friends and so on. So he didn't live with us, right? For, you figure he passed at 31. He moved out, I think he was like 22. For like 10 years, he lived on his own, never made a whole lot of money, but his passion was his music, right? And so I never knew like the level of his addiction in regards to how much he liked to drink, or when he did start doing cocaine, how much of it he did, right? Because he never did it around us, none of that. He never asked for money. He wasn't all skinny or tweaked out. So being an addict, the only thing that I could guess is he was also a high functioning kind of, I don't know if you can moderate alcohol and cocaine, but when the phone call came in that there was an accident or an emergency, I didn't even think it could. I thought it was a mistake because I didn't know the level of addiction that my son was experiencing.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell too, right? Because when you don't live with your kid, it's a lot easier, especially because you're right, because alcohol is something you can't like be around your family all the time. They won't know. You're going to smell like it. It makes you sloppy. But if you're not living with your family, it's kind of easy to, okay, this is my weekend. I'm not with my family. They won't know. I sleep it off. I'm out, whatever. So it can be hard. And like you said, he's not asking for money. It's like he's going to prison. There's nothing happening so I can know.
So I could know, because I say it takes one to know one, so that I could know that there was a problem, because sometimes I think, God, Chris, if we would have known, because he lived on his own. And then, of course, his roommates were all heavy drinkers. The only thing he told me one time is, gee, Mom, one time I went with so-and-so, and they were like, hey, let's go have some drinks, or let's go drink, or whatever. He goes, and I go to the liquor store, and I get a box of beer, and they go and they get a 6-pack, and I'm like,
yeah, you're kind of
like, oh, okay, is that how you guys drink?
We're not getting a 30-pack?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the only thing where I'd be like, oh, him and his friends were, really heavy drinkers. So that trauma was beyond any other experience.
Yeah, let's talk on your son now, because, again, it's like it's happening every day. You hear parents' stories, right? And I've, working in a treatment center before, there's been times where the staff is the one that has to call the parent to break the news, right? And that whole thing, hearing the mom's voice on the phone or the dad's voice, it's a sound that you hear from the parent that you can never unhear. It's brutal to hear that type of pain. So for you, let's start by just kind of, what was your son's personality like? Let's talk about that. How would you explain your son to someone? What was his personality like?
So my son also had a podcast for 2 years, and he was the gift of gabber, right? When he passed, 10 of his close friends, they all said, Chris was my best friend. Chris was my best friend, right? And you either have, you can't have 10 best friends, right? So it was like my son was his best friends to so many of his friends. He was funny. He was an extremely talented musician. And he actually belonged to a band called the Sons of Jimmy. He was the lead guitarist and put his everything into the music. No girls, no girlfriends. They made like the pact, like the band pact. Like no girls, no marriage, no babies. We're gonna do this, right? And they had the perfect band. It was a total talent. If you ever have any chance to get on YouTube, they have a song called Dopamine that will blow your mind.
I'll check it out.
My son actually wrote a song called Drug Dealers that'll blow your mind, especially since he released it just a few months before he ended up passing. But so call it life of the party, call it, to a point where one of his good friends, they made a movie about, it ended up being about Chris. It was about, because they all worked at the music center, right? Everybody worked at the music center, especially musicians that needed all the flexible time to work on their music, that needed the weekends free to work on their music. And so the impact that my son's death left behind showed me how much, or what a awesome human being, he was. And, I was always he was the firstborn, so I was really strict with him, right? And so me and him, bumped heads a little bit. And then the 10 years of addiction that I, lost. You figure if my son was from 8 to 18, Christopher was 8 years older than Nick, so that would be 16. So he was 16 to 26, in my addiction. So I just, my biggest regret, I lost all those years of being close to my children. I was absent. And and then now I lost Chris so young, it was like, I felt like we were just starting to get a little closer, and and I know if we would have had more time together, he probably would have shared whatever, if there was a problem with the addiction and so on. But, he had just fallen in love with this young girl, first time he ever said, Mom, I'm going to marry her, because the band ended up breaking apart because the singer broke the promise, got somebody pregnant, moved back to St. Louis, and it devastated my son. I think that might have spiraled him into maybe drinking more and using more, using cocaine. So that devastated him. And again, he never, he had his life. So he'd come on the weekends and stuff, but we weren't as close as I think we could have been. He was always close with his dad. I mean, they always kept in touch. But, not having him now, the main thing is that you just feel robbed of the future, robbed of what you could have done. And, for me in the beginning, I just felt at fault, because I've been an addict for my, my whole life practically. And I'm like, my fault. If I wasn't an addict, maybe my children weren't going to be an addict. But then, the Lord teaches you, or we understand that, my son was an adult and we all have free will, and God's not going to get in the way of our free will. And it was a bad choice, and unfortunately it was like the final bad choice. I mean, there's no going back to correct it, right? And the ironic part is my youngest son, Nick, while Chris, we didn't worry about anything, addiction, nothing. He lived on his own. We had my 28-year-old who was living in my house, who was addicted to fentanyl. We didn't know. We knew something was wrong, but because I had been out of the getting high game for so long, I didn't even know what fentanyl was, or this, the little blue pill, until Nick would be so high sometimes. Like, he'd be sitting there and you would think he was like on heroin. He would just not out. And I was like, something is wrong with this kid, and then, we're seeing that something is definitely wrong. And then we experience the death at the same time. And then when we figured out what had happened, now I'm doing my research on fentanyl, and not just me being a victim of what happened, but the problem that was going on in the world.
Yeah. So when your son passed away, your younger son was in his addiction at that point.
In full blown
addiction. That's when you kind of started to figure about fentanyl and all that. And that's when you're like, I think my son's doing fentanyl. Okay.
I started finding the little blue pills.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he'd be so loaded when he'd drop them in the house.
Yeah.
And then, you took a picture and did the research. They were M30. I remember M30 is on that little blue pill. So then I, told my husband, shit, Nick is going to battle something I've never even put in my body. And I know what addiction can be like.
And did you have a fear now, like, especially because your son passed, like, oh no, not my other son? Was that going through your head now? Yeah.
You know what's wild? The little two crumbs that killed my Christopher, Nick was up to like 20 pills a day.
Oh my God.
His
tolerance.
And then they're like, they're motherfucking die hard, when I think about myself smoking meth for all those years, you can't even tell. So when Nick was like, Mom, I'm up to, this many pills. When we learned that little specks can kill you, if you have no
grain of
tolerance.
salt, you can't even see can kill someone.
And he was at that point of tolerance. So I knew it was going to be a struggle. Send him to rehab. In fact, one out here in Orange County by the beach. Like, son, I will send you. Please go, And he'd go and come back and still, relapse. And, oh, man. And in the beginning, it was like, you're going to get better or else. You live in my house or else. And, oh, my God, the police and us fighting and just trying to force him to be better. And then I had to realize nobody's going to get sober till they want to get sober. In the meantime, we've got to love them more than usual, so they could eventually, like, okay, let me love myself and let me get myself some help, and not force.
And that's so hard.
Very, very difficult to watch. Very difficult to keep forgiving, and my son had a daughter too, so it was like, can you get sober? You got, because my son had a daughter at 19.
The young one had a daughter.
Yes.
The one that's in his addiction. There's a daughter. Okay.
Yes.
Where's baby mama?
And they're separated because she knows what's going on. And so first they tried to live together. That didn't work out. They both, he was staying with her parent. She sent him home. Of course. And it was just total dysfunction because the drugs were just, again, my son spiraled. And he's young and, he's trying to get sober. But, then you're sick. And eventually he got what is it, the shot that they give you?
Oh, the
Starts with S.
Sublocade?
He started taking the Sublocade I think it was every 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't cheap, but at this point I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Just go, because it helped him out of that rage from just, you know what I mean? And then being angry.
Yeah.
Well, with the withdrawals, and then like with me trying to help him with all this resentment that's like inside of him towards me, it was not a good combination. We were not making progress until I said, you know, I'm gonna not fight with him. I am going to learn to, you know, love him a certain way. You know, set some boundaries so I can at least keep it healthy for, you know, for the family. And man, I can't even tell you the exact day, but you know, that Sublocade went on for I think 2 years, and then little by little, and it really helped him. It really helped him with the I guess the withdrawal or all the crazy things that go through your, you know, through your mind. And I think now he's probably got about 1.5 years, thank God, where he hasn't messed with the fentanyl. Mind you, there's still a lot of work to do because sobriety is step one. Then you got to work on your life and figure out
forgiveness, acceptance, defects of character. You have to look at yourself. There's relationships you need to work on, rebuild. You have a daughter. There's so much going on. That's
so much to where I think he's stuck, right? Like he's doing much better, but he's got a long, you know, still a long way to go. Oh. But you know, it really worked. You know, loving them where they're at. Telling them, you know, showing them respect.
What is that? What would you say is like, because, you know, like you said, right, when a parent has their kid in addiction, we call it helicopter parents, or we have parents that are like, okay, no, this is what he's going to do, right? You have that happen, you know, because I'm a clinician, so you hear that. But, you know, the hard truth is your kid will get sober when he wants to. I don't care if you get him in the best rehab, you give him $1 million, you buy him a car, it doesn't matter. It's the disease that's doing this, not your son, it's the disease. How would you tell a parent, like, what is like that balance of love them where they're at, but also there needs to be healthy boundaries so it doesn't get out of control? Yes. What's kind of like that? What does that balance look like if there is one?
Well, it's funny that you say that because every time I would go outside for help on how to deal, you know, with my son, you know, I got on these Zooms and of women that have that experience of dealing with your addicted child. And that's where I learned about the boundaries. And that's where I learned that you don't stop loving them and you don't force a recovery on them because it's not going to happen until they want it to happen. You keep telling them that they're worth getting sober. You keep reminding them of what's on the other side. You keep reminding them, you know, that they do have a child or how good things can be. But still you have the struggle where they'll still, you know, especially the disrespect, you know, when you try to do something good and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but I had to realize that there's a lot of work there between two of us that still has to happen, actually. As far as boundaries, because then there's the money boundary. Well, Mom, I need money or this or that. No money. Then they start taking the credit cards or doing the, you know what I mean? Stealing, really, in other words. And luckily, you know, there was some stealing, but it didn't drive me crazy because it was out of our abundance, right? It's not he stole and now I don't have my rent money. So even that part, I was able to just say, well, Lord, at least I could, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's different if it was like, that was the rent money. This cannot be,
Then you probably go to the extreme, call the cops on this kid.
Yeah, put him in jail. Yeah.
No, because those thoughts don't come into my head because I just lost Chris.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I can so nothing happens to him. And God loves everybody and there's hope for everybody. And I'm just going to keep being patient and keep loving. And it's funny because my daughter, who, you know, she's 33, she's watching the abuse. She moved out because when Christopher passed, she lived up north. She graduated from Berkeley. She was living her life up north. But when that happened, then that's when she came back and she was staying with us and she was watching all this toxic.
She more like the normal child, did you say?
Very much so. Very much so. But you know, she likes to drink and stuff, but no addiction.
Yeah.
No addictions at all. Jordan has her head on tight and she, you know, she's working with us now and but she hated the way Nick would disrespect and do those things. And she's like, I can't live here. I can't watch this. I need my zen. You know,
I need my space to like reset.
Yes. So she left and I would share certain things with her, and she sees that things are better. And it's baby steps, but it's like my daily prayer, and I don't lose hope. I know one day my son's going to run the business, or he's going to do something beyond what I can imagine. In the meantime, going back to your question, where is that? Because I would ask that to the lady that I was learning the boundaries. I go, where is the magic of the scales where you're not enabling?
They're just helping and enabling. Yeah, what's the difference?
Where,
Tell me. They look the same.
Where's the balance? And she's like, well, when you're enabling. I said, yeah, but what if my husband's like not on the same page? So then there's that component.
That's another thing, yeah.
Where I had those conversations with my husband, because while I was absent for those 10 years, his kids were everything to him. So while I want to be hard, he's like, hey, no. You know what I mean? He would be more of the nurturing type. But then when I got sober, it was like, look, I know you're used to doing it this way, but it's healthier for us to be on the same page and do it this way. Because then it was nothing but enable. And me, I'm trying to again, getting the help to figure out, because you're dealing with a grown man. Living in your house, and it's not like you put the little child in the corner or put him in his room. You're dealing with a grown man, so it's like, God, how do I communicate and change his mind about? Because I can imagine my son's thoughts, like, oh, like you said, I'm sober, but now how do I fix my life? It's overwhelming, right? And I'm hoping he still learns that nobody heals alone.
Correct.
Nothing good happens alone. Everything good happens in community, even if it's just one other guy, like you said, that says me too. Yep. Let's be each other's support. Let's remind each other where we're come from or where we're going. That's all you need. It's like that one, just like when God made Eve for Adam, he was all by himself.
Man's not meant to be alone.
Yeah,
people are not meant to be alone.
No, right? Isn't it so true?
Yeah.
Like, we're social creatures. So anybody, and that's what's kind of horrible about like the phones and stuff. A lot of people think they could live through the phone in the room, kind of thing. And then
there's a difference between online friends and in-person friends. And you know that. We know that. It's way different.
Well, hopefully the younger generation isn't going to lose that and think that they don't need friends. But then notice how in the younger generations, anxiety is way up, depression is way up, suicide is way up. Is because we all need friends.
Yeah. Especially because, like, with the phone, it's like, think about it before. We would compare ourselves to what? The neighbor, the person at school, the person I see in person at a store. Now it's like I compare myself to people that live in Japan. I compare myself to people that live in Europe. Like, you're never going to see them. But this phone blows you up with all these people. I'm comparing to hundreds of people before I even get out of my bed. So anxieties and depressions and there's so much that the younger generation is going to go through. Oof.
It's a really whole nother subject line. I mean, technology is awesome, but I think it's doing a lot of damage.
So for you, was there a lot of work that you and your husband had to do too? Now that when you first got right, like you said, right, for 10 years he was mom and dad basically. So you come in, you got to humble yourself. Unfortunately, right? You have to of like, okay. Was there a lot of work that you and your husband had to do during that time, especially because now you have this other son coming in, like you said? Well, we both have to be on the same page.
Yes.
But also you have this idea of like, that's true, I was gone for this long and you had to, but I'm right now. I'm good in the head now and I'm trying to help out. Yes. We need to do this together. Was there a lot of work you and your husband had to do?
Oh, yeah.
Too? Yeah.
That took time. I had to not speak my piece, but like explain to my husband, like, look, I know that, the damage of those 10 years. But the thing about it is I can't go back there and fix, right? So I have to take responsibility and accountability of my absence, try to see, what it did to my children. Now, I recently went into a 12-step program. And you know how, all the steps, and there's the amends part, and then there's the character defect part. And I never did any of that both times I got sober. I just went to church and I figured, hey, let me work on me and let me just, try to be the better person. But you can't think that you got a clean slate over here when there's some damage over here that you need to fix.
Yeah, you got to make things right.
You do. You do. The make amends part. So with my husband, because he comes from like a different starting point, we had to have those conversations, and it got to a point where, like, look, if you're going to take his side, then I'll get the fuck out. because this is not going in the right trajectory. Let's talk this way. And the thing about my husband is he listens and he understands, but it is hard to change behavior, especially when you've been your son's best friend or you guys have been like this and now you have to be something else. And then your son is telling you, you're just saying that because of her. I thought you were on my side.
Yeah, the guilt game.
And then, so that whole manipulation, because you are dealing with a grown-up. He can be a really good manipulator, but with time, if my husband would take his side, and then my son will turn around and tell him, fuck you too, Dad. I'll be like, okay, see, you're taking his side, and look, there's the thanks you get. So my husband would be like, right? That's how you learn. Like, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I do need to make an adjustment here. Maybe I do need to take the side. But with consistency, my son saw like, oh no, now they're getting on the same page, and it has a whole different impact. Because now he can't be like, call Dad on the phone after Mom said, kind of like what the little kids do, right? And
like for me growing up, like, and I knew at the end of the day, I'll just call my mom. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I always knew I can get to her and manipulate her and get my way and get out of a situation. But what happens when that person's not that? Right? And then it's like, well, hold on. What's going on? No, this is always the last resort. It always worked. Now it's not.
Yeah. But it's really hard, right? Because like they say, we're hardwired with our certain behavior. Just like if we want to go on a diet or whatever, it's like we have to change our habit, and it has to be consistent.
I mean, you're an entrepreneur, so some people can't even fathom being an entrepreneur. Like, it's impossible for me thinking. And it's like, I get that when you've never done it, you're stuck with the 9 to 5. I get $1 raise a year. It's just what it is. I get a retire. And some people cannot believe in, like, no, there's no way I can get out of this. Like, no, it's not for me. It's not possible.
Yeah.
You're just like,
or
whoa.
it's too hard.
Yeah.
Some people from the gate, like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
They know they're not willing or able to do the work. Entrepreneurial people, like they say, they're lifetime learners. And they're always trying to figure out how, or tell me no, and let me try and see how. And some do, huge things, and some still do very good, successful things, on their level. But behavior is so hard to change, right? And learning about like how the brain works and stuff, and how the body reacts to certain things, it does give us an advantage. Like, okay, I just need to try this for this many days, and it's going to help me to now my first thought isn't going to be enable. My first thought is now going to be like, no, sorry, it can't. And because of this. And well, you can go ahead and ask your dad, but you're not going to. And then now they have to, right? You create a different behavior from them. And eventually, I think, if we're getting along and we're having those conversations, I don't know the timeline for people. Some kids, like, how they say you have the kids, you just have to look at them and they're like,
yeah, okay.
And then you got to get the other kid, you got to beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Same with adults. It's like, how do we, not that we have to become psychologists, but we just have to keep searching for a way that will work for our children.
Yeah, there's a saying that says the beginning of all wisdom is knowing yourself. And it's true. When you know why you do what you do, you'll have a greater understanding of why people do what they do. And it's powerful.
So good.
Because it's so true. It's such power. Why don't you get mad at that? Because they're doing that because of X, Y, and Z. That's just what it is. That's why I don't take it personal. But not knowing that, I'm going to think they're doing it to me. And they think they can get away with that. It's like, no, they're doing it to everybody.
Yes.
Right? If they do it like that, they do it over here.
Yes.
It's not personal. It's because of this. So within yourself, if I'm doing this and I need to stop, then I need to do this to break that pattern.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's start.
Yes. And it's so good. Like you say, you get, even in sales, you get the no, or somebody treats you bad. My thing is always like, oh, homie must be having a bad day.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't towards me, because usually he's cool, or I don't want to deal with that customer anyway. That guy's,
man, they must have been hurt
toxic.
Before, huh? Someone must have really manipulated them, because they keep on questioning everything that I'm doing. Instead of me getting mad, though, someone probably really tricked them last time. You just know. You could tell.
Or like you said, the more you know, then you know even how to flip questions, and all of a sudden they're opening up to you, and you're their best friend.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I'm good.
Yeah. Or I know how to approach this now.
Yes.
I bet you I'm going to come at it like this, because that's what they need. And then you see them change.
Yeah.
You see them change. They're not as reactive anymore. Why? Because I'm showing them that they're not going to get screwed over or manipulated or lied to.
Yes.
It takes time.
It does.
Because they need to see that it's true.
Yes.
I don't need to tell them that, and then you see it shift.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, you earn that trust. It has to be consistent, and just, it's the 80-20 rule. There's a lot of people that are pissed off, and they're not happy that you're doing good, right? They'll take, and then you have the other 20% that are, givers, and they learn, and but you just,
What was one
gotta-
character trait you had to change that was difficult to but was needed?
I'm going to say, because I have a certain way of thinking. Sometimes it can be very conservative and sometimes not. To just, let other people have their opinions, and it could be that instead of, no, these are the facts, and this is the way it is, and this is, how we're going to do it. Because everybody's different. We all have levels of, let's just say, attention to detail. My mother was like a sergeant. Everything had to be right in its
place. Perfect.
So the expectations are very high. I was raised by my mother, and her, I don't know if it matters, but I'm a Virgo, she's a Virgo, and they say that we're perfectionists and picky. So I had to kind of be like, calm down, be a little more flexible. Not everything is, this way.
Yeah.
Add a little color, because it's funny, because as an entrepreneur, like I said, I'm very flexible with personalities and stuff, but maybe like your expectations, like especially with your children and stuff, it's a little bit different because they're your children. So I think that was one where I'm a little bit more, because my kids will be like, oh yeah, mom's, yes, she's more calmada now.
The sergeant's here, at least to be right. And that's good that you're able to recognize, like, I am like this because my mom was like this, but there's a lot of different ways moms raise their kids. So I got to remember there's many ways to skin a cat, that saying, right?
Yes.
Kind of like that.
Well, look at like my mom, like left my dad, never fell in love or never brought another man. And when I think of like how much alike I am, like my mother, yet I would never, because my mother raised us almost independent to a fault. But like my husband, even through the addiction or whatever, I feel like the need for him to be by my side. But then again, he wasn't an abusive man either, like my mom. But
right.
I guess the biggest difference is she never, I don't know, like I tell my mom, after all those years of not being with my dad, why didn't you, you know what I mean? Somebody to tell you they love you and all. Like,
what did she say?
No, ya pa qué? She was already older.
Yeah.
But then I was like, see, Mom, but that's why you were so like mean and unhappy. We all need a little love, and we, but she just chose to play it safe instead. And my husband, he's, we'll be married 36 years. It's like my biggest flex or my biggest, like, thank God.
By the way, let's give him a shout out, because to be able to stay in it while his wife is out there out of her mind and still stay by your side.
Right. And I think, like you said, it comes like from what we learn as children, because his mom and dad, she stayed with him till the end, and he wasn't the coolest guy either in his own way. I was horrible in my own way, and Chris, like his mother, stood by her husband's side, and here we are, still Chris by my side. And I love it because, the last 10 years have been, glory to God, just improvement, better, fruits of our labor at work. And I'm just so glad that, it's not some other dude, you know what I mean? That we are still together, and that we were together to go through the worst experience of our life, which was losing Chris. And a lot of people say, that kind of
can end a marriage, right? I always hear that.
But we were like even more so.
Yeah. What really helped you navigate the loss of yours? Because again, so people know, your son wasn't doing fentanyl intentionally.
No,
it was cocaine laced with fentanyl, right?
Yes.
So again, that makes it's another layer to the story.
Well, people call it overdose. It wasn't an overdose.
What do they call it?
He did
poisoning?
one line. It's a fentanyl poisoning.
Yeah, fentanyl poisoning.
Even the coroner ruled it an accident and ruled it a unintentional poisoning. Because they saw him. He wasn't he was a normal kid. So they were like, oh, wow. Yeah. It was one of those.
And that's the worst. So, what did you, in case people are, going through that, what did you have to do to navigate that? Imagine the day you get the news. What did that first year look like for you to really navigate? First week, first month? Because, again, you're somebody also that has a problem with meth in the past. Some people can spiral, whether it's the marriage falling apart, whether it's I'm going to get high again, I'm going to blow up, whatever. What did you have to do that first day, that first week, that first month, that first year to navigate that?
Yes. So, I'm entrepreneur, type A personality, love everybody, energy for it. I did not work for 3 months. I could not function. I did go through the motions of getting the plot and dressing him. And I think about it now, and I'm like, I don't remember like a lot of the details. I just remember you go through the motions of having this happen. But as far as work and stuff, I didn't work for 3 months. I could barely get out of bed. And my husband was the opposite. He had to keep himself busy while I couldn't feel. You know what I mean? You're numb. You're so in shock. You don't know what the heck's going to happen. And then now I'm the leader of the pack at work, right? I lead the sales. And so now my whole troop, I mean, my work family is like, oh, shit, that's it. We're shutting down. That's it. She's, you know, my whole family, oh, the drugs are going to be back and all of that. But are you kidding? My son passed from drugs. And then my other one was struggling. So I was like, that's the last thing I need to let happen. And let not only myself down, but everybody, you know, the whole family. I had to go to therapy because my body, you know, you're broken spiritually, you're broken mentally, you're broken physically. You feel like you got hit by a bus. You know, you can't get up. There's this weight on you. So I had to go to therapy. I had to do a lot of self-forgiveness because I really felt like it was all my fault. I wanted to like hurt myself, not hurt myself, kill myself, but just, I was so angry inside at myself. And then I had to start tapping, using tapping,
tapping,
to get myself to be able to kind of get back. And then I'm in sales. Everything has to be, hey, hi, how are
how's
you?
It going? Yeah.
My voice was like, hi, hello, you know, just coming back into society in a sense. And, you know, just a lot of prayer.
What did therapy teach you when you were doing that? What were they trying to focus on for you to process?
So, you know, the forgiveness part, like, you know, a Christian woman that I was talking to, and she was like, you know, Lila, of course you're going to think it's your fault because you were an addict most of your life. But you got to understand, you know, that your son was an adult, and the thing that God gives all of us is free will. And you might say, well, why didn't God intervene and or make it not enough to kill him and all those woulda, coulda, shoulda. You have to understand that your son chose to do what he did. Unfortunately, there's no coming back to that. And if you can't, you know, self-forgive and heal, because she was like, we're in physical energy here. Your son is in energy somewhere else. And if you stay in the dark energy here of the unforgiveness and the guilt, then his energy, because I guess there's energy up on the other side too, the higher of energies. She goes, you want your son to be miserable wherever he is because you're out here when he expects you to thrive. He needs you to heal. He needs to kind of explained it to me like that. So
I like that. I've never heard. That's a very different way of looking at it too.
Yes.
Like, whoa,
like
your pain's affecting him.
Yes.
He's seeing that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't allow him to move into his nirvana or whatever.
Right.
He wants to see you be a great grandma to your granddaughter. He wants you to be a wonderful wife to your husband, and you're going to make him happy where he is. Other than that, you could keep him in the dark up there. And I was like, it changed my whole thing. So now instead of looking at him, oh, I miss you, I cry, like, honey, it's gonna be a good day today. This is what we're doing. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna kill it today. Still crying and still feeling the pain. The first 2 years are the toughest to just process because we're physical beings.
Was there like harder days than others? Like maybe you have a dream about your son, you wake up and you're like, oh, it's just a dream, and no, like. Or
the drives in the car where we women, when we don't cry, we howl like an animal. It's coming from like, you sound like a wolf or something because it's just so deep, you know. And I had those the first few years. I get home or just scream in my car I'm a 5-minute ride from my house to my office, and I just scream. And it's funny because then you would feel like, you feel like I guess all that anguish and pain that you're letting out of your physical, you're cleaning yourself out, I guess, because, and I don't know how much you have, because I haven't had a howling cry in a while. But every time I'd experience them, sometimes at home, sometimes not, it was part of the healing, really part of the healing. And the first 2 years, I couldn't talk about it. You could ask me about my son, and I would say maybe one or two things, and then I couldn't because right away you feel the pain coming to your throat, where you can't talk.
How about towards God? Some people get like they blame God. Like, was that something you had to work through? Or was that easy for you to navigate? Like, was that a part of the process too?
Well, I didn't blame God because I do. One of the best gifts that we get from God is free will. We're not robots. He's not going to come and get in the way of doing, or he's not going to make certain things easier, right? Yeah. He's like, look, I work a certain way. I'm perfect. I'm just. You just got to, understand. In the beginning, I was never angry. I was angry at myself.
So you were the main one.
I was angry at myself.
Okay.
And that was not angry with God. I was like on my knees, like, please help me, God. What's gonna, please help me, on my knees, the most surrendered I could ever be, because I was so afraid of what could have happened. And that when they say that you're going through something so dark, it's like the footprints, like there's only two footprints.
Because he's carrying you.
And I've literally felt it. Sometimes when I couldn't get up, like something was there with me, like 100%. And I think that God steps in like that because, he volunteered his son and watched him die and do what we did to him. So I think him more than anybody knows what child loss feels like. And that's why he intervenes. I can't even explain it, but it was all him, especially those first 3 months where I couldn't get up. I was still, waking up because I didn't want to wake up. You know how that goes. You're like, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to wake up. That's why you sleep most of the time in the beginning. But no, and it's wild. I was never angry. I was like, I'm not going to be angry with God. I need him.
I need you
more than anything right now. If anything, that anger was, I was angry at myself, like really horrible. And then, that self-forgiveness, realizing that if I don't forgive myself so that I can experience joy again, so that my son could experience joy wherever he's at, then God would show himself to me in like the Mother's Day. Like I just had Mother's Day. And it's a bittersweet for me, right, because of Chris. And it's wild because people may call it a coincidence, because now I have my granddaughter, right? She's going to be 9, and she looks just like my oldest boy. She looks more like her uncle than she does her dad to me. So she had a talent show at school just the Thursday before Mother's Day. And, we rushed over there. Started at 4:30. We get there at like 4:12, and she was the first one up, so we missed it, right? So I was like, oh. So then my husband was like, oh, well, let's just go. And I go, no, let's just watch a couple of these things, right? Plus, I was going to take Kali home. So she was like, no, Ima, I'm going to watch all the shows, right? So I'm like, oh, God, I have to be here for 2 hours. So, and then my son with the baby mama, they were going to go watch the Michael Jackson movie. So I thought they had left. Well, they came back after about 30 minutes of watching the show. And then the baby's, Kali's mom's name is Becky. She was like, we don't have to stay till the end. We're just going to stay till the performance, the yellow. And I hadn't looked at the program yet, right? Because Kali had already played. So I was like, okay, we'll sit here. Anyway, so Yellow by Coldplay.
Okay,
the song.
Yeah.
Okay, so my son's last recording in the backyard, strumming the whole song, and we have it recorded. He sings the whole song Yellow, and we have that totally recorded. Some of us, we still hear it. Now I could hear it, but I mean, it's just beautiful. So here's this little 10-year-old boy. So now my son fell in love with her name is Shirley. I don't know if she's Taiwanese or Filipino, but she looks a little Asian, right? So there's this little boy steps up with a ukulele. And he looks like he's half Latino and half Taiwan.
Is that probably Filipino, right?
So I look and I'm thinking, man, that would have been my grandson. So he's up there with the little ukulele, right? Hi, hello, everybody. I'm going to sing Yellow. So, of course, my husband, I'm like, record the little boy. Because I'm already like, oh, my God, what a gift. Oh, I'm going to get to watch it, right? So he sings it from beginning to end. And you know me, I'm like, just having that moment that I just felt like God gave me that gift. Like, look, how take this song and look, that might have even been, and not in pain or let's just go pain and joy at the same time.
Yeah.
Like grief will teach you that you can feel those two emotions at the same time.
It's like in that moment, there was a little moment of healing for you that you needed.
Yeah,
Right?
like
In
God
that
went.
way. God's
Yeah,
like,
like
here you
God
go, a
went.
little bit more healing.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. How do you like that? So then we recorded the whole thing, right? And I had my moment, like, oh, that was the best Mother's Day gift. Oh my God, you're so perfect. Like, who would have expected it? I
Yeah.
got here all disappointed because I missed it, and then you
Right.
give me this gift, right? So then that was Thursday. So then Friday, my daughter, she's an actor, so she had her first SoCal play with her new network of friends. So my sisters are over, my niece, and Chris has one sister. So we're all over to drive together to the play. So Chris was like, oh, I want to show you guys something. And then I remembered that he recorded it. So then he plays it for my sisters, who the tragedy, the loss, my son, again, life of the party, right? So it was devastating for all of them. So then they watched this and, oh my God, there we go. They're like, oh, it was like a gift for them as well. It might have been a coincidence to everybody else, but for us, you know what I mean? It's when God shows up, when he knows that the yearning is like at the top of your emotions. For me personally, for Mother's Day, but like my husband's sister, she doesn't have any children. So she saw like my son as her son, and she was like, oh. Anyway, so that was just kind of like how God shows himself even now, going on 6 years later, when certain days trigger the pain to come up to the surface, and God will show up and show you something just like wild. You're just like, gosh, like I said, like a little wink, like there you go.
I love that. Do you feel like also, because I know some people that, have lost their son to addiction, whether it's the drug itself or whether they commit suicide because of the addiction, right? Like they're in the pain. And you'll see some parents where you feel like that's one thing they still haven't, they like haven't healed yet. And it's been 10 years, maybe more, but you can tell like there's like that one thing where they're like, I don't want to talk about it. Nope, we're not. Nope, I can't do nothing today. That was her birthday. You already know. Don't even try to do anything. Like you still see the pain within that mom. What do you think they're missing? What do you think they're probably not doing? Maybe it could be the self-forgiveness. Do you find that also sharing your story is very powerful too, with the healing, right? Like, what do you feel like it is for those women that they're maybe not doing?
Well, the ones that haven't reached the point where you can feel joy, because sometimes in the beginning you're like, I don't deserve to feel joy ever again. That was my fault. Blah blah blah. I shouldn't be smiling. I shouldn't be having a good time because my son's not here, right? And in the beginning, you have all those thoughts. Like, what do you, you have all those thoughts. Until the lady told me what she told me and said, if you're going to sit here sad and bitter and not find joy in your granddaughter and the kids that you have left and how your husband loves you, if you're not going to be happy about all those things ever again, your son's going to be stuck up there. And you love your son. And I'm like, of course I love my son. Don't you want him to be happy where he is? That kind of way. Now I'm like, shit, let's have a party now. Honey, I love you. I miss you, of course. But you get to a point where, not that you're used to them not being here, but like they say, life does, go on. And I have my 9-year-old granddaughter, and she's going to be 9. And I only have one. And it's funny because when my son got pregnant with Becky, they were 19. So it was a bittersweet pill. I was all pissed off. And little did I know that she would be my my go-to now, right, without my son, because I just feel like I get to a second chance to relive everything that I didn't do with all my kids, and show them like, look, I can't go back to those 10 years, but let me show what a awesome mom, I could be now to you guys, but especially like, to my granddaughter. And so that was the pivotal point for me to say, I'm going to feel joy at the level of the pain that I have felt. I'm going to let myself feel that joy, because I believe that my son's going to feel that.
I love that.
So now, when I see his picture, and I'm like, what's up, dog? What are you doing up there? We're over here. Look at what we're doing. Look at Gali. She beat, she was first place in that swim meet. Right. And I just feel like where he is right now, because he wants to be down here too, but he's not. So let him have joy where he is. Don't let him be stuck in pain. And, I want to, you know what I mean? Don't let him, because he will be happy if we're happy. So that's, and it's all between our ears, right? That's the mindset, because the brain, how that goes, it's in charge of everything as far as our energy and what we're feeling. And so when the anniversary of my son's birthday, the day that he passed, we gather at his gravesite, and I'm not gonna say we throw a party, but we're just there playing the Sons of Jimmy music and having a great time. And even though all the friends still go and have their silent moment because we're feeling that pain, but being together in his honor, we're having joy, and it makes it easier. Telling the story of my son, if anybody asks me, because this tattoo, they're like, oh, Led Zeppelin. So this tattoo, it's the only one I have. It's the first one that I've ever had. And this was the first tattoo that my son put on himself. So he has his exact same tattoo. I had it done by the same girl that did his.
That's cool.
Right? And then my husband, about a year or two later, he has the exact same tattoo. So now him and that's the only tattoos we have.
Yeah.
So when people tell me if it's right and I feel like sharing the story, I will share the story. And now I always thank them. Oh, thanks for letting me share my story about my son, because now, you know what I mean? It's different for sure. I'm at a point of my journey where I love to talk about my son, if you allow me. And then there's those days, of course, where you cry. But when I say joy and grief at the same time, that's the only way I can explain, grief.
I love that. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's we have to be willing to be open to suggestions and hearing things, because we can even hear this and someone can be like, nah, that doesn't work for me, right? And it's unfortunate, but that will keep people in the pain. So I love that you're somebody who's taking having the confidence to be able to share your truth. So for those who are ready, those mothers that are ready, that can hear this, can, have a glimmer of hope to, take that next correct action for healing. Because, you learn with people in convalescent homes that are dying, there is people who die unhealed. There's people who die miserable. There's people who die alone because they wouldn't let something go. They wouldn't forgive themselves. They wouldn't try to find purpose in whatever they're going through. And so it's a choice that we get to decide, right? The free will.
Yes.
Like you said, right? You can choose to celebrate their life or be miserable with their life. Which way do you want to go?
Exactly.
So I appreciate you sharing that. So as we get to the end of this podcast, what I want to talk about is they're called speed questions. So we ask everybody these speed questions, right? And the first one is, what are 3 books you would recommend to somebody that can completely change their life? And this can be whether it's healing, whether it's business, whether it's self-development, like whatever you think. What are 3 books you would recommend?
Jeez. Well, number one, of course, I recommend the Bible, because I think that right there will. Every answer is in there. No matter how you look at it. And you know what? I'm not a big book reader. Let me think now. I like. I'm trying to think of his name.
Are you more of like a podcast person, audio? What do you?
I do like podcasts. I just started listening. I just started listening to the podcast. I'm trying to think of the name of the gentleman. It's not Tony Robbins. He's an older man. Oh my God.
What's he talk on usually?
All self-improvement. Older man, white hair.
Is he still alive?
No.
Okay. There's Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Yeah. He has a soothing voice too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So any of his books, I thought he was great. I would think, and again, I don't read a lot of books, but I like, self-improvement podcasts, especially when it comes to communications. But yeah. Shit, I'm going to start reading more books next time.
No, I love that. Well, whether it's podcasts or books, to me it's all the same. It's just taking in information.
Absolutely.
To learn. What was one single mindset shift? Maybe we've already talked about it, but to re-highlight it, what was one single mindset shift that completely changed your life?
With the single one that changed my life, like I said, after the loss, is in order for my son to be happy, I need to be happy.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is a funny one. What's the worst piece of advice someone's ever given you?
The worst?
There could be a lot, but just choose one.
The worst piece of advice is like get revenge. Like if they do that to you, you do that to them. And some people say, oh, you're too kind and all that, and it must be like, because God says, I see everything and let me handle the situation. So I'm not one of those. Number one, I'll forgive you before I even, probably you even deserve it. But I just think it's very freeing for me. And that's why I let people slide I mean, people have done some shit to me and I'm like, oh, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
When some people would say like, don't talk to that bitch,
Right, right.
or whatever. And it's like, I can't. My energy, it messes with my energy. So I try to keep it as positive as I can.
Yeah, I think that's so smart because it's like you're still acknowledging like, yeah, that wasn't right. I'm not gonna hang out with them, but I'm not gonna get revenge on it.
No,
like I'm not dumb.
Or dwell on it.
Yeah, dwell on it. Yeah, just
no,
okay.
Forget about
whatever.
it.
Learn from it. Move on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You're not gonna be like, what is it? Screw me once, shame on you. Screw me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
So we got to be very cautious. And if somebody does something to you, you forgive them, but it doesn't mean you let them, come and mess with you.
Yeah,
again.
I'm not gonna hang out with you again.
No,
I'm good. I'll love you from a distance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then for the last question, what would you want to tell a mother who's in pain right now? Today, she just got the call. My son passed from a fentanyl-laced pill, powder, whatever. What would you want to tell that mother?
So I would say there are no words right now. None. No words. But I would say don't be mad at God, but totally get close with him to get you through this. And I would say it's a journey and it's harder before it gets easier, but the only way to survive it is to stay close to God, because he will provide and do what you need to get through it. Because when does the journey end? Well, when our life ends, because it's never going to, you're never going to arrive like, oh, I'm over it now. It's never. But in the beginning, you just got that phone call. There's no words. Just sit there. Like I say, just sit there and just be there and listen.
I love that. And then what would be something you would want to tell someone that wants to support their wife in that situation, their mom in that situation, a friend wants to support their friend in that situation? What is a piece of advice you want to tell them not to do in that situation? Because I think sometimes people don't know what to do and they may try to help that person, but actually it's not really helping them. You're actually hurting them more in that situation.
And that's a tough one, depending on the journey. But you don't want to come in and say they're in a better place. You don't want to come in and say it was God's will. You don't want to come and say anything like that, because that's not what you want to say.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in a better place. No, he's supposed to be here. You'll create so much anger when somebody loses a child. So I would just say be present, listen. Can I do anything for you today, Mom? And not even say, well, how are you? Because you already know how they are.
Yeah, how do you think I am?
Yeah. Or like, Mom, I'm just checking on you. Not how are you? Can I get you anything? Do you want to talk about anything? I can just come and sit with you. Because sometimes all you want is somebody just to sit.
Just there.
And if you've got something to say, you don't sometimes even want to respond. You just kind of want to listen, hold their hand, sit with them. You hold somebody who just had loss, and oh God, it's powerful. At first, you may cry, but like all that energy, all that crying, all that screaming, all that howling, it has to come out, because if you also suppress that and don't do it, you get sick. You can literally get physically sick. So, yeah, do the howling for sure.
I love that, and that's such great advice, because that's what I wanted to hear too. Sometimes people say it too soon. Hey, at least he's with God now. I was like, this is the wrong time to say that. So I love that you pointed that out.
Yes.
And then as we come to close you out real quick, where can people find you? I know you guys have a podcast. If you want to mention the podcast that you have a business. Maybe there's a mom who just wants to reach out to you. How can she get a hold of you just to process her loss with her son, and then she can get to you?
Well, I want to open up my energy for sure. So I am the owner of Safety Vibe. I am also one of the hosts for the Triangle Hustle podcast. My LinkedIn page is the Lila, TheeLila. And then I think my Facebook is just Lila Don. So for any mother, no matter what stage you're in, if you want to open communication and be friends and be support for one another, I'm definitely here.
And I'll put her links to her LinkedIn, to your Facebook on the description, just in case you guys can't find her. You can just click the link and get directly to you. And we'll put the podcast link as well.
That'd be fun. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out here today and being so vulnerable and sharing such hard experiences that you've been through, to give our listeners hope, to give our listeners healing, and to just have the courage to be a mother and a wife and a woman of God, to take a stand and be a voice for those who are hurting.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here with you today.